Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about 13 of my favorite horror movies to watch in October. So I do have these organized a little bit, so any of the ones from the same subgenres are together in here. I am going to do some timestamps down below, that way if there's a certain subgenre that you're more interested than others, you can skip around to those. So the first one that I want to talk about would be slasher movies, because those are my favorites. And the first one that we have to talk about is obviously Halloween. We can't have a list like this without talking about the Halloween franchise. And I am putting the original here, although I highly recommend watching all of them if you can in any October. But I know that that's quite an undertaking with 13 movies. However, these are just perfect for this time of year. They're so much fun and just absolute favorites for me. So the next one I want to talk about is Scream. This one doesn't, jump out at me as a Halloween movie or anything like that, but it is one of my favorites, and that's the type of movie that I want to be watching in October. And I just have so much fun with this one as a whodunit, and it doesn't bother me that I know, where this is going in the end. It's still just as fun. Then the last of the slashers that I wanted to talk about would be Terrifier 2. So this one comes from a franchise that I would normally hate. I am just not into gore really at all. That's not what I watch horror movies for. I can find a little bit of enjoyment if it's not too crazy, and these ones do definitely push the boundary on that. But this one just absolutely works for me, and I think that it is in part due to Sienna being such an amazing final girl and one of the best that we've gotten in years. And then we also have Art, who is just a fantastic villain. I really feel like it's kind of like the birth of a slasher icon that we're getting right now, and I think that's so cool. So moving on to another subgenre would be anthology, and I have two of these. So the first one is Trick or Treat. I think that all of the stories in this one are just so good, and it has amazing Halloween vibes for sure. The favorite for me out of these stories would be the one where the kids are going to the quarry. I think that it is really creepy and I like the ending to it. And then the next anthology that I have on here would be Tales of Halloween. I hear people talk about this one, but not quite as much. And I think it needs a little bit more love because it is a little bit more low budget, but it is a really good anthology as well. It's got a lot of great creepy stories in here. And I think my favorite of these would be Sweet Tooth. So the next subgenre that I want to talk about would be haunt horror movies, and I have three of these on here. The first one is The House is October Built. This is the first one of these that I had ever seen. I rented it from Family Video, I believe, and I thought that it was just so creepy, and it really felt real since it was a found footage style movie. And that was just such a big fear of mine, going to haunts and wondering if it was going to all be real. And I just think this one is really well done with that. And also, I used to do Instagram challenges on my personal Instagram, and they were all like horror related ones. And I did post about this movie at one point, and one of the creators did see it, and it was just a really cool moment for me for sure. So any chance that I get to talk about this one, I'm going to take. So the next one I want to talk about would be Haunt. I think this movie is so gritty and realistic, and I think it takes that, idea that you could go into a haunt and have it all be real, and it just ramps it up to 11 in this one. I think that all of the villains just look genuinely terrifying, and it's just such a good movie and a must watch in October for me. Then the last of these that I wanted to talk about would be Hellfest. I've seen a lot of creators talk about how people usually either like Haunt or they like Hellfest, but I have always liked both of them. They're very different, and this one is a lot more fun and more of a popcorn horror movie, but I have no problem with that. And I think that this one is very creepy, especially for the ending. I've always had that stick with me ever since I saw it for the first time. I think that it is extremely realistic to have, your killer get away, and then they go back to their normal life with their wife and kids. That's something that actual serial killers definitely did, and they got away with it for years. Their families had no idea. So I think that the ending of this movie is just outstanding for that. The next subgenre that I wanted to talk about would be monster movies. And I do have one Universal monster movie on here. It's not my favorite, but I would probably say it's my second favorite, and that is Frankenstein. I had to put this one in here because I think that it has just perfect vibes for Halloween. I love the scene where Frankenstein's monster is born. It is just so iconic, and it is a really good movie, I think, for a stormy October night if you end up having one of those. So the next one I wanted to talk about would be Ginger Snaps. I had to have some werewolf movie in here, and this is one that I have the most fun with, I think, and it actually is taking place at Halloween, so that's even better. I love that this has a werewolf that is a female, and I really just want to see more of that in werewolf movies in general. And let me know down in the comments if you have watched any of the sequels to Ginger Snaps. I have not yet, and I would be curious to see if they are worth my time, so let me know that down below. Then the last of the monster movies that I put on here would be Fright Night. We had to have a vampire one in here as well, and I think that this one is perfect for October viewing. It is not my favorite vampire movie because that would probably be The Lost Boys, but that one definitely feels a lot more like a summer movie to me and a summer watch. And I will watch it in Halloween season as well, but I think that Fright Night just does feel more October to me. But this one is a very fun vampire movie, and it took me a long time to finally see it, but it's definitely going to be one that I have to rewatch every October now. So another subgenre I put on here would be paranormal, and I only put one movie in this one because there's one that just stands out to me as just the best and my favorite, and that would be Poltergeist. I have rewatched this movie so many times. I think that it is so genuinely creepy. I love the score for this one. It just unnerves me every time I hear it, to the point that I just can't even watch the Family Guy version of this story, at least not at nighttime. It creeps me out too much for some reason. I think it honestly is the music to it. But I think that some of the effects are a little bit dated in this movie, but it doesn't really hurt it for me at all. I think it's still just an awesome paranormal story. And then the final subgenre that I wanted to talk about would be cult classics, and I have just one for this one, and it's not necessarily so much horror, but I did have to talk about the Rocky Horror Picture Show. This is another one that took me a long time to finally watch. When I was younger, I had seen The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and they do kind of do some Rocky Horror stuff in that. And then I also used to watch the show Glee when I was young, and they did a whole episode based on that, and they used a lot of the songs from it. And I did really like all of those, but it did just take me a long time to finally watch this one. It was a guy that I was seeing a long time ago. He wanted to watch that, and I figured why not, because I hadn't seen it yet. And initially I did think it was quite strange, but I just kept feeling the urge to rewatch it. So I think for the last few years I have watched it each spooky season, and it's usually like one of the first things that I watch. So let me know down below what you thought of this video. Did you like the choices that I made, or would you have put other movies in their places? Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing if you haven't yet for more horror content. I do post 2 new videos each week, and you can also follow me on Instagram for updates on my channel as well as additional horror content. You can follow me on Letterboxd if you would like to see what I have been watching lately and see my brief thoughts on those. I want to thank everyone for all the support that I've been getting so far. It doesn't go unnoticed. My name is Devin. This is Carpenter Hill. Thanks for watching.